cracking today by welcoming our first guest. He is the former world featherweight champion, Sweetsy himself, Colin McMillan. Colin, welcome to the show. It's about time we had you on here.
Yeah, to be
looking very well. 12 years, is it now, since you...
It's a long time. It's a long, about 12 years.
Still looking well?
He retired very young.
I had to retire.
Look, you still keep in shape?
Yeah, I do a little bit of running. About twice a week. I try and do a bit of training, trying to tick over, keep myself in a little bit of trim.
Still working with a couple of fighters, Cole?
I'm still involved with an agency, so that's kind of keeping me busy.
All right. Because there was a while there when you thought you might get a little bit more involved.
Yeah.
That way a couple of years ago.
Yeah, with Audley and stuff like that, I kind of moved away, but developed the agency at the moment. So I'm still involved in the game. Can't go too far from boxing.
No, you can try.
I love.
Especially you, because you were fairly involved anyway. We're going to talk to a couple of kids in a minute, I think, who are fighting for your old title.
Yeah, the British title, I mean, it's a great belt.
Probably.
Yeah.
It's a gorgeous belt, eh?
Yeah, it's a long-term belt. I mean, one of my favourite belts. You know.
One of my favourite belts. That's a name drop. You can't come on here and say it's one of my favourite belts.
Absolutely. So, it is, Martin Lindsay. Yeah, for one of those guys, it's got to be the road to recovery. For the other, the quest goes on. You know what it's like. British title can be a step towards bigger things. When you won the British title, did you feel at that point that was what started you off on the road to bigger things? Or because you won the British title twice, didn't you? Once before the world champion and once after. When you won it the first time, in your head, did you think, right, I'm on the road now?
Most definitely, I think it's a great platform. You know you're at that kind of level now. You're going to go to the next step, the European, the Commonwealth. Try and gradually take your time, improve yourself, and go to that next level.
I mean, when Colin won the title, it seems like it was a million years ago. It's only, 95, 91. What I find odd about it, Cole, when you look back on it, is that in that short period, from beating Gary DeRue to fighting Stecker, it's exactly a year. But you have about 6 fights.
Yeah,
and they're British title fights, they're Commonwealth. I mean, that Percy Comey fight, a modern boxer would have 6 months off after a fight like that. You had that big cut, you were exhausted. You had a flu going into that fight or something. You drained, weren't you? I mean, you look at this, Andy. He beats Gary DeRue, okay, then he has a sort of nice touchdown in Reading against the unpronounceable geezer. Kevin Pritchard, British title defence. Sean Murphy, British title defence. It was 12 really hard rounds. Then the Percy Comey, the Commonwealth title fight. Then a nice tick-over fight, Valdez, still 6 fights. And then Stecker in a year. I mean, listen, it would be great if modern boxers fought 5 title fights and 2 others in a year. It just doesn't happen.
But I bet, though, and this is relevant to Appleby Lindsay, I bet it meant more to you to have those British title fights before you've been a world champion than it did coming down on the other side.
Oh, without a doubt, I'd say. When you're very young and hungry and that, you want to try and you want to become a champion. And that British title is a very, very important title. And I'd say it can lead to much bigger and better things. And you want to try and go in there and put your name on that pedestal.
Which is why, Bunce, everyone's so excited about this fight next weekend.
Yeah, that's why we're excited about this fight. But see, what you need to do, and what still happens to a degree these days, doesn't happen as often as I'd like to see happen, is that what Colin did in that year was establish himself as the best featherweight. There was no one over there saying, yeah, that's fine, but I'm going to go for this title. Yeah, that's fine, but I'm going to go for this title. Now, Colin established himself, took care of all the contenders, stroke pretenders. Now, going into the Stecker fight, this is something that's often overlooked, Cole. You were not necessarily a massive underdog, but you were a big underdog. As a top Italian, gold medalist, slick, awkward. So your game against fighters that didn't want to get hit was to outbox them. That was always going to be a hard fight. And on the night, I mean, I remember writing a report, and I sort of said in the report that you won 13 of the 12 rounds. I mean, it was a whitewash. It was a stack. I mean, it's one of the great neglected fights of the 90s. And part of that is that there were a lot of big bangers around in the 90s, the Benz and Eubank and Lennox and Naz later on. But Colin tends to his fight with Stecker gets totally overlooked. That was it was a fantastic performance, Cole.
Yeah, one of my favourite fights. I mean, obviously, a world championship fight is for me, personally, very, very satisfying. I thought he's a great champion. He went to the Olympics, got the best boxer of the tournament.
Best boxer of the tournament, by the way.
45 fights and only 1 defeat. So I was, very pleased about that, and I boxed very, very well. And obviously, for me, I was quite sad in a way that the injury came the following fight after that, because there was still much more to come.
The fight against Pleasure is quite a controversial fight because there was a suggestion that Frank Warren didn't want the fight. He went on record at that press conference, remember, at the Limelight nightclub, and Frank Warren said, I don't really want this fight, I don't like this fight, because he'd just come back from Japan or something, hadn't he? But you saw something. I mean, if he hadn't dislocated your shoulder, he would have won anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people kind of like say, that I shouldn't have taken the fight before, but, going into the fight, I boxed well below par. I kind of not underestimated him, but I wasn't firing on full cylinders and that. But having said that, if the shoulder hadn't come out, I was ahead on all three scorecards. I still won the fight.
And it was quite late, whatever it was.
You know, I would have won the fight. But you know, unfortunately, it didn't work out that way.
Now, what about then you have the shoulder injury and it doesn't really come right, does it? Then eventually you do win the title back against John Joe Irwin, which was a hard fight. He was a good fighter as well. At that stage, Nassim Hamed is the world champion. So at this stage, you've got a domestic rival. Now, you did a lot to try and force him into the ring, like Junior Whitty did with Ricky.
Yeah, I fought for nothing. Yeah, I fought for nothing to get the fight on. Yeah, barking about many years ago.
Yeah, exactly. I remember you did, that comeback fight, yeah. But to this day, does it still annoy you that you never got the chance, like a lot of British fighters did, to fight Nance, to meet Nance?
Yeah, we've had that. I mean, we sparred many years ago when I was kind of like, I was British champion, fighting for British champion. He was coming through. And I wanted to fight. I always said before, Nance, a tremendous fighter, but he always struggled with boxers. If you look at the people who gave him trouble, people like Kevin Kelly, Barrera,
always the boxers.
Daniel Ellis, yeah. So I knew he would have trouble with that fight. And you know, when I lost my championship, you know, I had a 3-fight deal with Frank Warren, and obviously the plan was to fight Nance for that title, but it never materialised.
But you're doing well now?
Yeah, it's all going well now. I mean, I've got an agency working well away on that. Spoke to Spencer Farrell, and he's got a new promotional company, Hard Luck Promotion. He's doing really, really well.
Just finally, before we let you go, because I know we've got to move on, were you at Spencer's show the other week?
Tremendous
sellout with about 8,000 people.
Great support from the Albanian community and that. And I know he's got quite a few big projects lined up, so hopefully I'm going to be part of that. And you know, it's going to roll on.
Colin, thanks for coming in, mate. We haven't been ignoring you. You've been on the top of this list to keep knocking down.
Pleasure to meet you, Colin. Thanks for doing this.
No problem, Paul. Cheers.
Right.